So thank you for your time today. I wanted to tell you a little bit about our 8-week Sporting Success Mindset program that we put together under the CASS and Friends banner. I thought I'd start by telling you a little bit about myself. Who am I? A passionate sportswoman. I've did quite a bit of sport at school, I must say. Had a bit of a break at university for many reasons, I suppose. Had my children and got back into sport and running and cycling probably about 8 years ago, and really started to enjoy cycling. Had always loved running. Managed to qualify for the European and the World Duathlon Championships out in Spain and Switzerland, and went out to Mallorca for my 50th birthday, did a big bike ride on the Sunday, I think about 110, 112 miles, and then on the Monday ran a personal best in the marathon. So yeah, very passionate about sport, and because of being able to be lucky enough to travel and to do some sport abroad, I realised how expensive it is, and I wanted to start a charity that would help some really talented young athletes with their own sport, the ones who perhaps came from maybe a more financially disadvantaged background and couldn't afford the new kit and equipment. So founded CASS and Friends with 2 friends in my village. As well as providing the athletes with some grants for equipment and for coaching, I also wanted, though, to give them something that I was quite passionate about in terms of my own sporting endeavours, which is really understanding my mindset and understanding how that can affect our performance. So I went back to my old consulting days when I ran my own business. I was working in the finance sector. I was down in London working with managers and teams, doing a lot of coaching and mentoring in the workplace. So I sort of grabbed those skills, became accredited with a talented athlete lifestyle support certification, and put together the 8-week mindset program. So I'll just tell you a little bit about CASS and Friends, and then I'll tell you more about the 8-week mindset program. So yes, we started CASS and Friends in 2015 when we came across a young local triathlete called Cassarina Ferreira, hence the name of the charity. And Cass was just doing really, really well. She'd been selected to train with the West Midlands Triathlon Academy, but her parents didn't have enough money to buy the necessary kit and equipment, because essentially it's 3 sports within one. So it was wetsuits, it was bikes, it was trainers, all sorts of kit and equipment that was needed to do triathlon. And so we started raising a little bit of money for Cassarina, and we called the fund CASS and Friends because we knew we wanted to also do the same for some more athletes. And in 2017, we became a charity. We supported last year 17 athletes. 3 of them have left us this year because they turned 18. So the athletes that we support are between the ages of 12 to 18. They come from perhaps a financially disadvantaged background, so we're able to give them money for their equipment and for their coaching. We give them one-off grants every now and then because we get to know them really well. We get to know what events they're doing, whether they need a new pair of trainers, whether they need a new pair of sunglasses because they're rowing now and it's sunny and bright and they've never had a pair of sunglasses for rowing before. All sorts of different kit and equipment is needed. We sign it off with the trustees and then we give them grants. And we don't just do that as a one-off, we do it 2 or 3 times a year depending on what each athlete needs. But we didn't want them to be financially disadvantaged. We didn't want this group to not be able to compete on a level playing field with their competitors. And even just the trainers that some athletes are using now, there's been so much controversy about the carbon-plated trainers, which do arguably increase your performance, but they come at a price. And at £250 for a pair of trainers, for some families, that's just not at all possible. So we wanted to allow our athletes to compete on a level playing field. As well as doing that, though, as well as providing the financial support, the feedback we had from their parents was that they also enjoyed just the contact they had with somebody outside of their coaching network and outside their family, sending them emails, wishing them good luck in events or races or competitions, or asking them how they got on in competitions or races, or certainly just showing some interest in their performance. So I wanted to develop this 8-week mindset program because, again, it's just another string to their bow in terms of they've got all the physical fitness and coaching because they've got brilliant coaches and they're hugely committed to their training, but most of them didn't have any sort of mental fitness. So this 8-week program is there to address that side of things. So I'll just run through the 8-week mindset program week by week. The introduction, even though obviously I know the athletes quite well, is where I ask them lots of questions all about their training, their recovery, how much training they're doing each week, how much recovery they have, what their fueling and nutrition looks like, how they're getting on at school with their academic work or other work commitments that they might have. We make sure that we feel comfortable working together because that obviously is an important part of the process, feeling comfortable working together. And we also then at the end of the session do a small exercise in understanding what their values are and what are the things that are really, really important to them, because we know that if our goals are aligned closely to our values, then we will have much higher self-esteem if we can achieve our goals through working alongside our values. And I wanted to make sure that the athletes really enjoyed their process goals that we work on in week 2, and they're much more likely to enjoy them and do them if they're aligned closely to their values. So as I say, week 2 is all about goal setting. They come to week 2 with 3 outcome goals that they want to work on. They might be, and one of them might be a goal that they want to work on just in the 8-week program, but equally they could be goals that are longer term, maybe getting a podium spot in a particular race, might be being selected for the England squad. Whatever it is, it's very individual, and the athletes themselves identify those outcome goals. In session 2, we work together and we identify the performance measures they need to hit in terms of some targets that they would need to hit to help them achieve their outcome goal. But much more important is the process goals that we outline. And those are the goals all around mastering the skills and the techniques and the characteristics that they need to do in order to achieve their outcome goal. And these are the process goals that are the day-to-day habits and behaviours that are linked back to their values that we addressed in session 1. And if they are able to sort of align the two together, they're likely to enjoy the process much more. And obviously, if they enjoy the process, they're much more likely to be consistent. And if they're consistent in their training, they're much more likely to have the outcome they're looking for. In week 3, at the back end of, sorry, at the end of week 2, we also look at the chimp paradox model, which is a model of the brain that I introduced to the athletes. It's a relatively simplified model of the brain, obviously, but it's something that we touch on throughout the rest of the program, because as we know, and our patron Eddie the Eagle said this many times to me, that 95% of his sport was the mental side of it and 5% was the physical side. And I'm sure if we spoke to many elite athletes, they would say that their physical fitness is very important, but their mental game is often even more important, especially when the going gets tough. So we talk about the chimp paradox model, I explain it to the athletes, and we refer back to that in the rest of the program. Week 3 is about habits and self-talk. And again, this is about our mindset and our brain and the way it works and the triggers that perhaps make us think negatively, identifying those triggers, being aware of those triggers, then being able to have some intention around the triggers and then turn that into positive action. So we do a lot of work around turning negative thoughts into positive thoughts. We look at self-limiting beliefs and behaviours, and we identify one in particular that we dig really deeply into, and we work through a process of understanding what the negative consequences of that particular limiting belief might be and what the reward would be if we started to think in a much more positive way. So those are 2 exercises that we do around habits and self-talk, and they're very powerful. And I encourage the athletes to do a self-talk diary for the rest of the week. That's one of the actions they take away from week number 3. And they think about triggers and negative self-talk and how they can look at things from a different, more positive perspective during the week. Then we move on to week 4. And this is all about energy balance. energy balance and recovery. And it's a week that I really enjoy with the athletes, because whilst I'm not a nutritionist, I am absolutely passionate about food and recovery, and I think how much it can really benefit our performance. And so I share with the athletes the ideas that I have around nutrition, from reading lots and lots of books on it, and also from listening to bucket loads of podcasts on it. It is very, very personal, so the athletes will take from the session what they want to try to apply, but I share with them some of my general principles, which are eating a rainbow of coloured foods, eating as many different fruit and vegetables and a diverse range of foods as possible, lots of different colour on the plate, as I say, keeping well hydrated, eating what I call low HI foods. A lot of the athletes will have heard of low GI food, but I refer to food that I eat as low HI, which is low human intervention. So anything that looks like food gets on the plate and it's in its simplest form and it's not processed. And I think if we can eat like that, then we're doing pretty well. So we talk a lot about nutrition. We talk a lot about sleep. Again, something that I'm really passionate about in terms of recovery. And I explain the benefits of sleep and how they can perhaps improve their sleep patterns. And we also then touch on other energy imbalances, because if there's anything that's affecting them from an emotional point of view, this can actually have it can be hugely energy sapping, even more so than perhaps their physical training. So we look at the whole picture in terms of relationships, schoolwork, commitments, friendship groups, all that sort of thing in this week in terms of energy balance. Week number 5 is all about fears and anxieties, and we think about a lot of things that the athletes can control, as opposed to things that they worry about that they can't control. So we do a big exercise around controlling the controllables. We work on mantras, we work on cue words, we work on breathing techniques, all sorts of things that we can, little strategies that I can help the athletes try to find something that really works for them. We also do some work on visualization, something that I know an awful lot of elite athletes do. At the end of this session, I ask the athletes to prepare a script for themselves, a very detailed script of an aspect of their sport that they want to practice in their visualization. And I ask them to do it just for a couple of minutes, maybe a couple of minutes every day, just to get into the habit of doing it. And if they enjoy the process and they find it's beneficial, then it's something that they then take on into more than 2 minutes a day, and they use it as a regular strategy to help them deal with worries and anxiety. So at the end of week 5, they go away with lots of different little ideas, things that they can try to work on. And as I say, things will work for some athletes, but not others, but at least they've got a real toolkit now of strategies they can try and to see if they can reduce their worries and anxiety. But we know that obviously worry and anxiety is sometimes a good thing. So it's about the balance, and it's about too much may make them choke under pressure, not enough is going to make them have that attitude, well, it doesn't really matter and they might not perform to their full potential. So again, it's finding that balance for each individual. Another aspect of this is another action that I ask them to do. I ask them to start a gratitude diary. And I found personally that this is a huge help in terms of increasing my positivity, reducing my fears and worries and anxiety, and also helping me with my own performance. So again, that's another little action they take away from week number 5. Week 6 is all about confidence. And strangely enough, despite being hugely talented, our athletes sometimes struggle with confidence, as many elite athletes do. So again, lots of different strategies to work on. At the beginning of the program, I give them a small tin. It's called a confidence booster tin. And inside that tin, there's lots of different pieces of card. And in this session, we fill up that tin. We write on the pieces of card all the great training sessions they've had, the amazing races they've done, when they've got a PB, when they've had a success, All of those things go onto a piece of paper or piece of card in the tin that they can refer back to when their confidence ebbs and flows, as we know it does, or they can take their tin to race day the night before the race. They can open it up and they can read through them. So that's one of the things we do. We also work on a skills success sheet. By the time they've filled that out, they've got 50 pieces of evidence of how they've or when they've actually demonstrated and achieved the skills required to do their sport. And there's lots of other strategies. There's things like alter ego, there's faking it, there's power poses, there's identifying their super strength, lots of little things that we talk about and give them other tools to help with their confidence. And then the next session, performance focus, penultimate week, one of the most important weeks, I think. It's really bringing it all together in terms of what are they going to do the week before their A race, their A tournament, their big game, whatever they're working towards. In that week before that event, we plan out the entire week in terms of what mental strategies they're going to be using. And then we also do it very specifically for the 24 hours before their race. So at the end of this session, they've got a week-long pre-race psych plan. They've also got a 24-hour pre-race plan. And both of those things alleviate fear and anxiety because they've got all this prepared. They've controlled what they can control. They've planned and prepared so that any eventuality that crops up, they know how they're going to handle that. They can then be more relaxed. They can then focus on their event. They can trust the process. They've put in all the mental fitness. They've put in all the physical fitness and training, and they can turn up hopefully to race day feeling 100% confident and 100% prepared. So that's week 7. And then finally, week 8 is where we recap on all the strategies that we've used, and they transition off the program. They think about the strategies that they can use in day-to-day habits and life. It's not just related to sport. And they think about the strategies that they've really enjoyed working with, and they're going to turn into day-to-day behaviours. So they transition off the program. But as I say, there's always ongoing support. With all of the athletes so far that I've coached, I've ended up continuing to coach them, which is wonderful. Not all as much as the others, but they know that I'm always here for a phone call or a chat, especially if it's just before an important race or competition. At the end, I ask them for some feedback because we talk about the growth mindset on the program. Our athletes are very, very into growth mindset. They want to learn, they want to develop. They know they might not have got all of the skills needed to get to their outcome goal, but they know they haven't achieved them yet. And that's what a growth mindset is. So at the end of the program, I do ask for feedback. And this is just some of the comments that I've had in terms of feedback. I have made some changes to the program as a result of feedback that I've received, but these are some of the nice comments that I've received so far. So I'm just going to stop sharing the screen now and say thank you so much for joining me for this presentation about the 8-week mindset program. I had time to do this presentation this week because myself am tapering for a virtual marathon that I've got to do a week tomorrow, and I'm going to try my sub 3 hours again. And I didn't know what pace to go out at for this race, so I've asked a few people, should I try and do sub 3? It's a virtual race, it's going to be so difficult, or do I go for a slightly easier option and go for sort of 3:05 and maybe just do a negative split? I know my reason why for running. I run because I love it. I run because it keeps me a little bit sane, I think. I think about all the people who sadly can't run, so I run for them. As obviously getting older, I've lost people to cancer and various other things. So I run because I'm grateful that I can run. But I think I race for a different reason, and that's what I had to figure out, because my friend said to me, Fee, why do you want to run sub 3? And I had to think really hard because it's just a number, it's an arbitrary number really, but I want to run sub 3 because I know that it will absolutely push me well outside of my comfort zone. And that is what I miss. That is what I miss about full-time work, or being a child at school, or going to university and doing those first jobs where you are always out of your comfort zone, because you're always learning new things and pushing yourself out there. And now that I've got to the ripe old age of 51, I'm not actually pushing myself out of my comfort zone enough. So that is my reason why for doing that. And I hope by the end of the 8-week program, all of the athletes I work with really understand their why. It's a big part of the program. It's a big part of our sport. Why are we doing what we do that makes us hurt and takes up so much time? Why are we doing it? And that's a really big part of the program, is understanding our mindset and working with our mindset so that we can be even better athletes. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope that maybe we can work together at some point. Thank you. Bye-bye.